they're talking about. Well, the first thing that I always say is, well, it's kind of interesting because I don't know, Zillow doesn't get in your house, so they have no idea what's in here, number one. But number two, all Zillow does is they take a large area around the subject property, the address. They take the value that has been sold for all those properties around that circumference, and this is straight from the CEO at their Premier Agent Summit. And then they divide that by the total number of square feet to get a price per square foot times your subject properties, and they can be off sometimes 30%, 15%, low, high. They have no idea. That's not their primary reason why they provide that zestimate for the market. The reason is they're getting people to log online. The number of hits are astounding. The concept is wonderful, but they're getting agents to pay these crazy prices for advertising to get those leads. And so what you need to be able to be prepared to do is walk in to discuss something called the comparative market analysis that is completely foreign to the seller, because it gives you an advantage when you are in front of the seller, because they're going to go, wow, you really know what you're talking about. So today what we're doing is just a analysis on one that I had recently that was kind of challenging. So I thought you guys could pick up some things in this one. The best way to get really good at this method of pricing a home is to practice it over and over. Start out on your own home first, or a friend's home, whatever makes sense. Practice it, and I'm going to give you on the back page some adjustments that we're going to use today to complete it. But the one thing about this method of pricing is, has anybody heard of a unique selling proposition? What's a USP stand for?
Unique selling proposition.
Which is?
Which pretty is explain how you separate yourself from the competition when you sell a home, and how you sell a home.
Yeah. So whether you're new or whether you've been in the business a long time, you can use this particular unique selling proposition as an advantage over your competition. So if you go to the market analysis and turn to page 2, I'll give you a couple examples of a unique selling proposition. Go down to the bullet item next to the very last there. And I'll read it to you. I have over 22 years of full-time experience in residential real estate sales and have been licensed for over 40 years, with extensive backgrounds in residential resale, new construction, land, and investment properties. So that is what's called a unique selling proposition. It separates me from most likely the person that I might be competing with to get the listing. Because there's not a lot of people that are still living that have been licensed for over 40 years. But that separates me from probably the competition. The next one is, I utilize the adjustment method of pricing on my listings and performing your market analysis, which can add thousands of dollars when selling your home. So that separates me, being able to say I use the adjustment method to pricing, because most realtors are using the price per square foot method. Would you guys agree? Well, that concept came about long ago when subdivisions, whether they're in Portland, mostly California, when they were punching out subdivisions of 500 homes, 400 homes, and you had 3 models to choose from, and you can walk in and the sales agent on the desk would say, yeah, we have model A, B, and C. And model A is 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath, 1,800 square feet, and that's $200,000. Model B is 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath. That model is $250,000. And the point is, when you have 500 homes in a subdivision, there's some turnover. You could go in and identify, there's not going to be a lot of uniqueness between model A and all the ones that have sold, especially when they're in the same age, same model, built by the same builder. Make sense? So you have this certain amount of square footage in each one of those models. They're all the same. You can kind of quote a price per square foot. Well, and when I was selling for new construction back in 1977, that was kind of the same thing with me. I mean, we had like 6 models, but after a 3 or 4 year period, you could go identify 4 or 5 of them that are sold very easy and kind of figure out a price per square foot that worked. Over time, with our urban growth standards and urban growth boundary and all of the changes that have taken place, now what are we selling? Well, let's take Lake Oswego for example. We have a 5,000 square foot lot next to a 1 acre lot. We have a $1 million home right next to a $300,000 home. And so can you see how price per square foot could get skewed really easily? So the number one key is going to be finding a comparable property that's extremely similar in size, in style, in age, not color, but and then there's going to be differences when you go to find a comp in a neighborhood, because now our neighborhoods are not congruent at all. They're very different. Now we've got like an ultra contemporary being built by like a polished home right next to a 2-story traditional, and you know, again, one lot might be 7,500 square feet and the other one 15,000 square feet. And so you have these varieties, these differences in comps that are similar in square footage, similar in number of bedrooms, similar in number of bathrooms. But if you use the price per square foot method, it could really skew your report. Let me tell you another unique selling proposition. Once you start using this method, the adjustable method, number 2, the dot there, the bullet. My homes sell for approximately 3.3% more than the average realtor broker. 98.3% of my list price versus the average agent at 95. So in the RMLS, if you extract out what the average list price, you can just add it up real quickly. The average list price to sell price ratio, I'm averaging 3.3% more per house. On a $500,000 house, how much money does that mean to the seller? $18,000? $17,000? So I hit it very hard if I'm charging a 6.5% commission or a 6% commission, and the competition is Redfin and they want to offer 1.5 plus your 4%. I'm going to say, well, I'm actually saving you money, charging you 6 because I average 3.3% more. Make sense? And I attribute it to my houses selling closer to the list price because I'm using this method called the adjustable method of pricing. So, you know, this is really profound, you guys. We had an appraiser come in, didn't we last week?
2 weeks ago.
Was it 2 weeks ago?
Mm-hmm.
Man, that time flies. So we had an appraiser come in, and one of the questions, you know, on the table was about a daylight ranch and how to price that daylight ranch. And the question I asked her is for single levels versus daylight ranches, or a single level with it, or a 2-story above grade versus a 1-story above grade with the daylight ranch. Are you not using a different price per square foot for the differential square footage on the basement? And she said, yeah, we're using approximately 25 to 30 bucks a foot for downstairs. Where upstairs on an average home they're using about 45 to 50. And I was just confirming with her that still is the case in the marketplace. Where do I get my adjustments? I get them from 2 appraisers that I work with. I've been working with them for several years. They're clients. I've sold several homes of each. And so they give me the numbers because I touch base with them every once in a while because the market is changing. And it changes actually as we have price increases, you know, in the market. So we've come a long way since 1977. You know, that first house that I bought that was $52,000 is probably now $450. You know, that's a double about every 10 years, by the way. So, so as prices go up, obviously the cost to build a home goes up. So what we want to learn today is, what do appraisers typically use to adjust the main features to get apples to apples when you're trying to price a property? How do you get the subject property that you're trying to give a market opinion of value? And by the way, that's what we're giving, is a market opinion of value. We're not giving an appraisal. Every one of our CMAs that we print out on, I happen to use the RMLS one, and I just throw a couple other attachments in there. But I'll walk you through what I attach and what I don't attach. Most of what I attach on a CMA presentation is what you have here. The only thing I didn't do is print a bunch of color pictures for the, you know, the 16 photo op or the 32 photo, you know, that you can get. It's a good idea to include that in there when you're talking about a comparable that you're trying to compare to the home you're trying to price. You want to show, hey, this guy's done an amazing job with their remodel, and you know, you haven't done a thing in the last 15 years, and it's, you know, going to be a lot more difficult, but we have to make an adjustment for the condition. So what we've got is maybe 3 or 4 properties over on this side of the sheet, and we got our subject property on this side of the sheet, and we're going to go, and today we're going to make adjustments to these comparables to get them to be apples to apples from a feature standpoint with the house we're trying to price. And each one of the CMAs now, I mean, you know, I've been doing it for so long, it only takes me about 20 or 30 minutes. My son-in-law's been doing it for 3 years, it takes him about 30 minutes. So you can do it as you practice and as you go along. And, you know, I will tell you, no matter what level you're at when you leave this class today, in terms of understanding what we're presenting, you're still going to know way more than any seller, I promise you. So you will be able to talk from a position of authority when you're with the client. You might confuse them a little bit, but you're going to look a lot better than throwing out a price per square foot that could be 20% high or 20% low. What happens when we price a house low in this market? What do you see?
Multiple offers.
Multiple.
A whole bunch, huh? And depending on how low you price it, and you think you're right there, you might have 15 offers, or you might have 1 offer. Now it's softened up a little bit, but you know, when you price it correctly, what normally happens? Bunch of showings, offer in 2 weeks, right? Or an offer in a week. When you price it really high, what happens?
No offers.
It's shot in the water.
Yeah.
Fewer showings. No
So do you want to tell your seller that we goofed up and priced it high after 3 weeks on the market and you have no offers?
Nope.
Or do you want to set your seller up when you're in making the listing presentation to give him the results of what could happen if you price it low, correctly, or high? You want to do it then, right? Right up front. Because now, in 2 weeks, when you've got 10 showings and no offers, all you do is you DocuSign, you send them an addendum, which is a price reduction. And hopefully get it to where it needs to be to get it sold. But there is no question, they're just going to sign it because you already talked to them about it. But if you wait and you do it in 3 weeks and you don't tell them, well, you know, most of the time they're like, okay, we're really excited, let's get the house in the market, and you price it and you go, shoot, we've had 15 showings and no offers, and it's been 2 weeks. You know, you guys, we need to drop the price. Well, we can't afford to drop the price. What do you mean you can't afford to drop the price? I mean, you want to sell your home, don't you? Yeah. If we don't drop it, we've had 15 buyers through and it's not selling. That's a pricing issue. There's probably nothing wrong with the house. Might have a small lot, but you've used comparables, right? So you should be able to price it correctly. But we don't control the market does. That's what makes up the market. We help make the market, but we're not the ones that control the market. So you need to be able to set your client up. And so in here, the next page is my marketing activities that I do prior to entering the MLS. We're not going to spend time on this today. That's a whole nother presentation. I think Kevin might have done it this time on marketing.
He's going to be doing that later on.
Later on, okay.
Yep.
And this just happens to be a little bit about my marketing plan, but I give them exactly what I'm going to do, so they know what I'm going to do. But right past the end of that is a little cheat sheet called "How the Market is Likely to React to the Listing Price of Your Home." It's not very fancy. I give you permission to make it fancy if you want. But it basically, it's this document right here, you guys, at the very end of my marketing plan. 0 showings first 2 weeks on the market. I mean, anybody seen that kind of a thing in the last couple of years? Yeah, yeah. Brandon hasn't because he's pretty new. But that's going to be a very common thing probably in about the next 3 or 4 years, by the way. We have no showings after 2 weeks. But I'm telling my seller right up front, if we don't have any showings in 2 weeks, there's a lot of buyers out there in the market right now. Our population's gone from, about 1.2 million in the metro market to 2.4 or something in the metro market. We had 3,500 homes, single family detached when I got my license in 1977. We now have about 2,800 with 1.2 more million people. We're still in a seller's market if you look at all of the indexes for each little area. So I think pricing is going to continue to go up for a little while. We've seen a little lag right now. It's just a little relief, but every capital market takes a little bit of a breather after a run up. It's just common. Sometimes we take a big downward thing like what happened in 2008 through 2011. But that was more because of our lending policies, and if you were breathing, you could get a loan, and you could hide a lot of stuff, or the lender did it for you, But just with this sheet, you guys, I use this as part of my method my comparative method to pricing, because it essentially is telling the seller things to expect if you're priced low, right on the money, or a little bit high. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So if we're low, you guys, and I'm talking to my seller right now, hey, Mr. and Ms. Seller, if you're low, we're probably going to get several offers, which is a great scenario, but the markets never lie. It's going to push your price to probably what it would have sold for if we priced it correctly. You're going to get there probably quicker. It's a risk, it's a gamble that we do get the right buyers to push the price up. But there's a method to handle multiple offers. That's a whole nother thing that I think Patty teaches on. But today, I'm talking about the adjustable method of pricing, and we get into it after this sheet. But the reason I use that sheet that we just talked about is to help set my seller up so that they're prepared if we're getting no showings, we're getting a normal amount of showings, or we're getting a whole bunch of showings. Making sense? So now they know, could be low, could be high, could be right in the ballgame. And oftentimes when we do a CMA, we come in with one low number, and then we've got a couple that are really, maybe 3 that are really close, and then one that's kind of high. If the one that's kind of high is close to the few that are pretty close, I'm going to probably use that one that's high, and that's going to be my range. If I get one that's like really low and 3 that are all together, what's that telling us? It's a direct, that's probably what it's worth, somewhere in there. Based on this, Mr. and Ms. Seller, where would you price your home? What do you think your home is worth? Those are good scripts to use, by the way, when you're in front of a seller and you're doing a trial close. If you're going up against another agent, you want to ask them, well, based on this information, what do you think your home is worth? And they'll tell you what you just priced it at. now you're ready to sign papers, right? So today, if we can, let's go ahead, and those that have their computer, let's log on to rmls.com. And if you can, go to, once you get there, let me know when you get there. I can see it.
No, you're fine.
Okay. Sit down. Is it okay?
Either or, yeah, it's on you in that corner there.
Okay. Let me know when you're there.
There.
Okay. So sorry for the couple people that came to my one a couple weeks ago. We're going to do the same, reuse the same one because it was handy. And the property address is 15295 Southwest Alderbrook Court. This little sheet is called 20 steps. It's basically the 20 steps to what we're going to do today. Okay? So the very first thing is you want to have a listing presentation and a CMA presentation, such as cloud or realtor's property resource, and use their adjustable method template also found in the RMLS. We're going to use the one in RMLS today because it's the easiest as far as I'm concerned. But again, in this package, by the way, the only thing I didn't include that I normally include is the comps that are in here. I use a client full sheet, which doesn't give the listing agent's data. Those of us that have done this a few times know what a client full is. And then I'm going to also attach a 16 or 32 photo up report so my client that I'm giving my CMA presentation to can see the difference between the comparable photos and what they look like to what their house looks like. Okay? Make sense? Okay. So the house that we're doing today, so first you got to have a template, right? Which one are you going to use? You got to make that decision. I love the Cloud CMA template for SUMA. You can make it short, you can make it long. It's pre-branded. It really looks good. You don't need to print out all 60 pages or 50 pages, right? You can just use a couple of the core pages. You can set it up to do your what makes you different, your USPs, your unique selling propositions. It's really in a nice format and it's branded to you. So that's a great one. Again, I'm just using the RMLS web for simplicity today. And the number two thing, do we want to walk in to do a CMA presentation cold without ever seeing the house? Okay, the good old days, because the competition was, you know, we would walk in and I'm going up against 2 or 3 agents and they're like trying to get the listing on the spot. You had to be prepared for this one-step listing approach where you would go in and close on the spot and hope that your CMA was close. Now, it's totally relationship selling. It's about, hey Dave, can you come over and, you know, we're thinking about selling our home. Tell us what we need to do to get ready and, you know, kind of give us an idea on what it's going to be price-wise. Sure. It's just that I'm not going to tell them what I think it's going to be price-wise until they've done everything to get their house ready. But what I'm really doing is going to the house to be able to bond with them, build a relationship again with them. I might not have seen them for 2 or 3 years or 5 years. Maybe I've, you know, given them a phone call or two, but, you know, for the most part, I'm going back in kind of cold with their house. So I want to walk around it and I want to ask them questions about, you know, how come you decided to paint your rooms red, purple, green, and pink, you know? Or, you know, whatever. Just, you know, you're going to be talking about the house and getting the data on the house that you need to be able to go back and do your homework. You're going to pull the comps before you go. You might want to even share a few. Hey, there's a couple of comparables that have just recently sold in your neighborhood that kind of look a little bit like your house. It's 2-story. Theirs is 2-story. It's just down the street. But again, you're walking through the home. It's about a 30-minute appointment, but you're going to take notes on the property and what have they done since they last purchased the home from you. Have they done several upgrades? You know, it could be a complete remodel, right? You want to find that out, but really it's about you know, connecting with those people. And does that make sense, everybody? Okay. So that's step number 2. Don't forget, when you leave the house after you've met with the seller for the first time, what do you do on your way out or your way in? First thing.
Take a picture.
What's that?
Take a picture.
Say it again.
Take a picture.
Take a picture. You got it. We're going to take a picture, or else your front will be the photo of 3 years ago when you sold it to him, or 5 years ago when you sold it to him. But you're just going to tell them, hey, I want to go back to the office, do my homework. I can get back to you tomorrow in the next couple days, and let's sit down again and I'd like to go through it. You may have other agents that are going, hey, you know, I've got it right here. Well, you want to point out during that 30 minutes when you're walking through the house with the seller that, hey, some agents are going to try to provide you a CMA that's based on a price per square foot, and there's no way without doing your homework that you can really, you know, give you an accurate CMA. So I'm going to go do my homework for you, and I'm going to come back and have a CMA that'll really give you confidence before you go on the market. I've never had a seller go, well, I didn't like what you just said, so I'm listening with somebody else. They always wait for me. I've never had somebody actually list a house when I said I'm coming back in a couple days to make a presentation and go through my marketing plan, but most importantly, your price analysis. Okay? So be confident in that. Okay, now we got to select our comps. So we're going to do that together right now. So this particular house is a tri-level home in a over 55 community. How many comps do you think there are on tri-level homes over 55 community?
Not many.
Not very many. So this is kind of a hard one. We're going to do it together. But the good news is we don't have to make too many adjustments. But so I'll just save some time. In this particular search, I put in active pending solds, and on the solds, for some of you that are new, you know, you can actually do days back. Do you see where it auto popped there? Days back. You can hit that and go, let's see, I want to go back 9 months. Gosh, you know, this is a tri-level. Maybe I should go back 2 years to see if I can find a tri-level in this neighborhood, because the most important step of the whole process that we're going to talk about today is comparing a tri-level to a tri-level. It's not comparing a one level. How do you do a one level to a tri-level? You don't, because the price per square foot is going to be completely different. It costs a lot more money to build a single level wide than a tri-level straight up and down, of which portion of the house is dug out of a slope, which is pretty cheap to do. So you're going to be so skewed if you're only looking for comparables in the neighborhood. You might have to go slightly outside the neighborhood. Normally, though, we can accomplish what we need to in a neighborhood. And when we do that, what are we getting? Lots with similar size, right? Maybe a couple more that also back to a greenbelt, because ours does. I mean, you're going to find probably way more exact comparables than if you go outside that neighborhood. But most important is not so much the age difference of when they sold. Most appraisers are looking at 6 months or sooner. You might have to go back a year to find a similar house that sold in the neighborhood, and it's really simple to make an appreciation adjustment for that 12 months, isn't it? Because we have all the data in our MLS that will help us see that. and show us. Not necessarily for the specific neighborhood, but for perhaps the specific area. And so we can use some approximates on appreciation. It's way better than trying to find a house that is outside of that neighborhood that you have to make several adjustments where you could be making some mistakes. So I like to try to stick in the neighborhood as much as possible. In this case, I'm going to update this to 24 months. Do you see how I did that? Here's my search, by the way. You go to menu, for those that haven't been there. I'm sorry for those that have. This is not very, and you go to advanced search. Okay, area 152 would be Hillsboro. This one is in Tigard if you look at the address. So we're going to put in 151, which is, and you come over here to the area list. And there's your 151, which is Tigard Tualatin. I'm going to put in active pendings and solds. The actives I'm not going to use in my analysis and do adjustments on, because there's nothing been proven with an active listing. Unless it's on the market for a day, you read in the private remarks, I have 14 offers and I'm taking no more offers. You know it's about ready to go pending, and you know that the agent probably underpriced it. It's probably not a bad comp to use, right? Especially if it matches kind of our tri-level scheme, which is we have 3 bedrooms and we have 2.5 baths, but I'm not going to get into the baths on this one. I just want to try to find a tri-level that I can use as a comparable property. So, but I do want a 3-bedroom, and in this case I'll go, well, maybe there's a 2-bedroom tri. I've never heard of it, but maybe they're not counting the 1-bedroom or the family room. Maybe they're counting the family room downstairs as a 3-bedroom. There's only 2 up. So yeah, I'm going to try 2 just in case. My number of levels, I'm just going to go 3 because I want to try just to find tri-levels. And where have I gone, by the way? I've gone, their square footage is, what is their square footage again?
2056.
2066.
56.
2056, thank you. So I'm going to go probably 1700, and then I'm going to tab over. I want a range. I'm going to go to maybe 2400, just to try to get a range. And the legal description, by the way, is Summerfield. I never put neighborhood, and the reason is a lot of agents don't include the name of the neighborhood, but if they're auto-populating their listing, they're putting in the legal description. It's required, the legal description is required in the form, the listing form that we fill out. It's not required about the neighborhood. So this is, when you put in a legal description, it's going to pull, it's about 98% of the listings in the RMLS have the legal description, and we'll name it by the neighborhood. But you can put in several things, like maybe there's a Summerfield Phase 2, so you can put a comma there. Everybody taken the RMLS class on how to search? Is there somebody that hasn't?
I was scheduled for it today, but I couldn't do both.
Okay.
So I chose you.
Well, you're awesome, Lester. Okay, so you might put, don't miss that class.
Oh, I won't.
Yeah.
Oh, you can't, can you?
Where did you get the?
Oh, you're not talking about the orientation, you're talking about the actual
ethics.
class.
Yeah,
I'm talking about the initial orientation.
Okay, yeah.
I still gotta do that.
You can do that anytime, but don't ever forget to do your ethics thing, by the way. I got mine coming up, I gotta take it again. Summerfield, maybe Summerfield Phase 2. Maybe, I might just put in summer, just to make sure. In this case, I am gonna put in summer and not put in Summerfield. And it's pretty broad, isn't it, this search? But it's very simple because I have a unique property that I'm looking for, so I need to try to pull as many comps in as I can. I'm going back 6 months, but let's go back 24 instead. That's 2 years for tri-level in this neighborhood. Let's see what we got. You hit the count button, I got one comp. Wow. Yep, subject property. There you go. And it's active. Is that a good comp? Okay.
And that's just 14 acres.
Yeah, which they don't. Okay, so we're going to revise our search because I don't have any pendings or solds, you guys. So we're going to leave 2 to 3 bedrooms. We're going to change the 3 to 2. And the reason is when you have a 2-story above grade, there are 2 stories to a tri-level. There's a 3rd story, which is the basement. And remember what I said earlier about the appraiser? They will calculate basement square footage, but it's at a substantially less reduced price. We even got down to discussing, well, how much reduced? You know, if it's unfinished, you know, she said $15 a foot. On your adjustment page here on the back, right here on the adjustment page, it talks about $15 to $20 a foot at the very bottom there for unfinished daylight basement. If you've got a finished price per square foot, so let's go. Let's see. Do you see where it says down? Go about 2/3 of the page down. Square foot main level. They're using $40 to $60 a foot depending on the quality of the home. 60 would be like a Street of Dreams quality, maybe 65 even. A below average home condition might be $40. This is for the main level and level 2 above grade. Bedrooms up and main level. Square foot lower if it's finished, 20 to 25. If it's unfinished, actually $10 to $20 a foot. And that's at the same quality. Now, why does that seem so low? Well, the answer is because we're not including the lot underneath the house. Remember, we're trying to get apples to apples on just the style of the house. 2-story to 2-story, 3-story to 3-story, 1-story to 1-story. We'll compare the lot size later, so we remove the lot out from underneath the house. You're just going to be comparing building square feet, all right? Finished and unfinished. But whenever you're comparing you're trying to find a daylight basement in a neighborhood, and you know you don't have any daylight basements, what's the closest style home to a daylight basement? What's the closest style home? A ranch, 1-story. What's the only difference between a 1-story and the daylight?
The daylight.
The downstairs. And they've already told us they're going to assign somewhere between 10 and 30 bucks a foot, 25 bucks a foot. So that's how you make the adjustment to try to get apples to apples. And we're going to be telling you about how to deduct and how to add to the comparables in a second. We're going to hit that step. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about comparing apples to apples, getting the comps that may be a little bit different style, but getting the comps using as close to comparables as we can to the subject property that we're trying to price. Okay? And if you look at your updated CMA value adjustments as of August of 2017, I mean, we got quite a few things in here. Facts to a green space. Bedrooms, bathrooms, condition, siding exterior, you know, additional dwelling unit. I mean, what do we got going like in Lake O especially? We've got these Airbnb things going on, and they've got this additional dwelling unit in the backyard, and they're renting it out at 150 bucks a night. You know, that's obviously an advantage over the same style house if you had two houses exactly the same, but that had an Airbnb, what would the market bear for that? You have to try to figure that out, right? If you use the price per square foot method, what do? Just add their square foot into the deal and try to compare the two? No. You're going to have a really high skewed thing. You got to make the adjustment for the subject property that doesn't have the Airbnb, right? So there's all sorts of things to consider when you're making adjustments between two houses. And we'll go through to try to get this, the subject compared today. You know, the square footage for the main, the lower, and upstairs, you have it right here. You know, pending adjustments. Oftentimes, now an appraiser won't use a pending unless there's nothing out there. But what he'll do or she'll do is call the listing agent and say, hey Tyler, can you give me an idea, did that house sell for less or more than the list price? And he'll say, well, you know, I really can't disclose that because, you know, if for some reason the current buyer decides to walk and I tell you what it is and it gets out in the market, I've broken my fiduciary to my seller. But I will tell you that we had multiple offers. Oh, so you sold it for more than the list price? Okay, I'll let you know that. Yeah, we did. But I can't tell you what it is, you know. And so you got to be careful when you're talking to an appraiser with a pending listing. But they'll put a pending in knowing that there's multiple offers. And then they'll say, it sounds like he had about 5 or 6 offers. It could have sold for probably 10, 15,000 more. Therefore, when she's making her adjustments on her appraisal, she's probably going to add 10 or 15,000 to the price of that comp. So, and we'll talk about that in a second. Let's see. What else do we have here? Flag lots. Is that a disadvantage or an advantage
Disadvantage.
in the market?
It's both.
Cause you could subdivide it.
It's an advantage to the one buyer where there's no houses on the market, and it's the only thing they have to choose from to get a lot in the very back. But those middle two, or the first and the middle two, aren't going to be very desirable. But because if you're driving down the main road and you've got a house stuck in the back on the third lot, now think about this for a second. What's your curb appeal?
Minimal.
There is none.
Yeah.
You're driving by, there's no curb appeal there. You know, and you need to point that out, by the way, if you're selling the house to somebody. Kinda. I mean, it's like, just FYI, you know, this is the reason it's not selling, probably, is the price in relation to the fact that it's a flag lot. So we should probably come in a little bit lower than what they've got a price at. But there's no curb appeal. And what's the number one thing people want? They want their house to look good. They want it to be attractive from the front. So, but a flag lot, there's going to be actually a deduction. If your comp was on a flag and your subject is on a normal neighborhood street and your comp is on a flag, but the houses are really close to being identical on that flag lot, to get it to that sold for X price, hang in there with me for a second, and you're trying to put a price on this house, your subject, are you going to add to the comp sales price, or are you going to deduct?
Add to the comp.
You're going to add to the comp. And the reason is because the comp is inferior to the subject, and you need to bring it up to match the comp because they're on a normal street and the flag is not, it's not a positive. Most of the market does not want to be on a flag lot. Most of the market. Majority of buyers want to be on a regular neighborhood, cul-de-sac, you know, 2 or 3, you know, not, and I'm not going to describe the house they want, but just location, right? It's location, location. But I've been selling flag lots because there's not a lot to sell. So, am I not going to sell that? No. We're going to take that one. But we need to let the seller know we have a little bit of an issue because we are on a flag. And by the way, now I'll just flip that. Let's say the subject's on a flag and the comparable we're using is not on a flag. It's superior. What do we have to do to get it to match ours. Bring it down 15 or 20,000, because the market says that that's worth about a $15,000 or $20,000 adjustment being on a flag. See what I'm saying? So we have to make these little adjustments between the comp and the subject property to get them to be apples to apples. And then when you're done with the whole thing, you can kind of see where the prices are coming out and see how it looks. So, well, I just made some changes to my search, and this is pretty basic, and I apologize for those guys that have been through this before. Now we got 29. What changed between that search of 1 and 29?
The levels.
The levels. Exactly.
Hey, Dave, can I ask you a question
You bet,
in regards to, you have one item down here on the back in regards to subjective factoring.
Yeah.
And that's the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about that? I know that's kind of, is it kind of like what the market will bear for that area? Is that typically what subjective factoring is going to be?
Yeah, and you always have to, when you're gonna make an adjustment on a neighborhood, it's kind of it's definitely subjective.
Sure.
But you have to prove it. You have to say, okay, I'm gonna pull 3 comps from this neighborhood and 3 from this neighborhood. And I'm gonna look, and they're gonna be all similar. All 6 are gonna be similar.
Right.
But you should be able to, if you have approximately the same square feet, it won't take very long. Just run 3 comps in that neighborhood, 3 comps in that neighborhood, and look at the difference.
Okay.
And it will show you. So it becomes less subjective. It's still subjective, but less subjective than if you're, you're just kind of going, well, I know there's a better neighborhood. It's going to
So
be
it's just the
15,000.
location.
It is.
Okay.
On everything.
All right.
Yeah. Good question. Everybody follow that?
No.
You need to be able to prove that the neighborhood, if you're going to make a neighborhood adjustment, you better know that that neighborhood is either more or less than your subject property. And how do you do that? You pull a few from your pull 3 1 levels in this neighborhood and 3 1 levels in that neighborhood. Make sure they're not on a golf course right over there, and because your other 3 aren't. But take a look at what you can actually make a couple adjustments between the two and go, whoa, there's about a $15,000 difference between King City and Summerfield. Whoa, I didn't know that.
If you
Lester.
have good comps in the same neighborhood, though, why would you bother looking at another neighborhood?
You wouldn't.
But you just said you were pulling up some houses in the neighborhood.
Scott's question was if you had to go outside the neighborhood,
Right.
because there wasn't any.
Right.
And we needed to make a neighborhood adjustment because
Right.
one was maybe a little more run down than the other one.
Yeah.
What's the market bearing between the difference of the two?
Right. And I thought you said you were pulling up 3 from the neighborhood you're using on your comparable and 3 from the subject neighborhood.
Yeah.
If you had 3 from the subject neighborhood, that's what I'm saying. You
Yeah.
had 3 from the subject neighborhood.
Yeah.
Why do you have to look at the comparable neighborhood?
Because I may have one comp from that comparable neighborhood that is better than those other 3 subjects.
Okay.
I got one over here that's really good,
Except for the fact that
except
it's
for
not
the
in the
fact that
same
it's in a different
Right.
neighborhood. It's like
Okay.
the identical house almost.
Okay.
Same age,
Yeah.
3 bedrooms, 2.5 baths, single levels. Ugh.
Because I've had that exact same thing happen to me when I've done a CMA, and then the seller will say, well, our builder who built our house built the identical house in this neighborhood over here, and it's selling for $20,000 more.
Yeah.
You need to tell me why.
Yeah.
And so that's where that came up.
And
so
now you
that's-
can tell them.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, because you can compare. Well, let me show you what's selling in their neighborhood versus what's selling in your neighborhood. That takes a little extra work, you guys, but it's a great trial close feature right there.
Okay.
I mean, if you can prove that. And, I just had this discussion the other day on a property that I've got in escrow in Sherwood. And my property's pretty expensive. It's $4.5 million. And the appraiser called me and said, Dave, what adjustment did you use comparing the other land properties that sold to other developers and builders? What adjustment did you make for the Highway 99 noise that your 60 homes are going to be backing to? And so he's what's called an MAI appraiser, and that's like the highest level. It's more commercial, but they do commercial, not so much residential. They do residential, but he's doing the properties across the street that the city of Sherwood is condemning, and he asked me, because he's doing his adjustments, And he said, what adjustment did you use for road noise in proximity to 99? And I said, I didn't. Because only you could probably prove that. And he goes, well, I would go find your the subject properties you used. I mean, I knew what I was talking about, right? I just wanted to see what he would say.
Yeah.
And he said, you could just go take 3 or 4 properties that comps that have sold in the last 3 or 4 years, make an adjustment for appreciation, and they back to 99, and then you can take the other comps you're using now that don't back to 99 and figure out the difference of what the road is costing in the land. I go, exactly, but I didn't have time to do that. You know, because I mean that's a pretty in-depth research, but he does a 156-page appraisal, and I'm doing a 12-page CMA. You know, I was giving my client just about what it was going to cost, but we were taking his land out to bid to 30 builders, and one of the builders that actually got it paid $1.4 million more than the offer that he had provided that was on the table. $1.4 million that he had offered 1 year before that, less than what we were able to get because 3 other builders bid on it, and that guy didn't want to lose a property. So he was trying to hose that client for $1.4 million. But what do you think our client thought of, you know, the real estate community, you know, a professional realtor? They thought, wow, we really got our money's worth, you know. They made, you know, Dave and Patty, in this case it was a joint listing, Dave and Patty brought us $1.4 million more. So, but do you see my point? It's the same point. I could have proven what the noise factor was, you know, in land sales. That would have been a really hard one. But when we're talking neighborhood, we've got way more comps. So we can just pull 2 or 3 there, 2 or 3 there. Now we've got a difference and we can tell. And there may not be any difference, and your client could be right. But you've done your research to say, you know, I did my research and there really wasn't. So I didn't make an adjustment for the neighborhood. You know, in this case, we're not going to have to deal with neighborhood, but I'm glad that you brought that up, Scott. That's really good. So here are your adjustments. These are the primary ones. Just another real important statement. We're only making a few of the major feature adjustments on every on your normal CMA. We're not going 10 adjustments deep like an appraiser, 8 adjustments deep. We're only the main ones that are costing a lot of money. We'll let them worry about the fireplace. The adjustments, well, one has a fireplace and the other doesn't. One has air conditioning and the other doesn't. If I need to really try to prove a point with a seller, and as you get more proficient at doing this over the next few years, you're going to be able to, you might want to use a fireplace or an AC or even the difference in siding between wood and hardy plank to get them to come out really close, because you're trying to prove a point to the seller what your house is really worth. In this case, I normally don't hassle or worry about vinyl versus wood or whatever. But if you want to get that detailed, you can. There's adjustments, and we're going to show you how to do that. So I got 29 houses to choose from. Holy cow, let's do the search on that. Which ones are active? Which ones are sold? There's no pending sales, so that's good. So we don't have to call an agent and go, hey Tyler, can you tell me if you sold that for more or less? Tyler would tell me more or less, but I know he wouldn't give me the price.
Sold for more, for sure.
Yeah.
Let's get you up in price.
All right. Because we're with the same company, but if I got a CB agent calling me, I'm like, really? Really, Lester? I'm sorry. Go figure it out yourself. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, our buyer agents that are out selling our listings, they're really clients too. So we should treat them like sometimes they want to be our adversary, sometimes they want to just be a total opponent, and they want to make it hard on you. It's about closing the house, right? It's about getting it closed. It's not about fighting with, an agent or something. And sometimes that can kind of really impede a sale, and you can goof it up for the client, the seller, or the buyer. I got a lot to choose from. I'm just gonna tell you the ones I did choose, because we've already done that. So, what I did was, now you can see the process I went through. I was trying to find 3 levels. Did we find any?
No.
No. So I had to go and choose 2 levels and make an adjustment on each one of them for not having a basement. But I found them in the same neighborhood. I got plenty of sales. What am I going to do to choose the right ones? Well, I'm going to go through and I'm actually going to check them all. See how I did that? Check all. And then I'm going to go over to the report, agent full. I'm going to hit go. We'll see how fast this server is here. The Wi-Fi. Hey, pretty good. And I'm going to go through and look at each one. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to check them all right now. Make sure they're all checked. We've got kind of a goofy thing on the, it's not showing the, it's kind of off a little bit, but anyway, down here at the bottom, you see where it's checked? So that's checked. Yeah, I like that one. I don't like this one. So I'm going to uncheck that.
Why don't you like it?
Just because I don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Good question.
Good question, though. Why don't I like it? It's because we're going to move to the 4 that we picked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
There's too many.
Yeah. And so I picked,
Just trying to understand the
Well,
thought process about
No,
why
that-
those
that
4
is
were
a good
picked.
question.
The other
How do
ones.
you pick and?
yeah, I'm looking at similar condition.
Okay.
Maybe they're not done.
Based on the pictures that you see there?
Yeah,
Okay.
and well, I'm going to pull up there. I'm going right into their pictures, and I'm going to look at condition. There's
Okay.
that one
So you
is.
just do a quick overview visually.
I do. That's really similar to what I got
Okay.
right there. That's a good one. This one, whoop, that one's on the golf course, and mine isn't.
Oh,
Not as good.
And it's kind of updated. Paint looks like new linoleum in the entryway.
Uh-huh.
They're really kind of light and bright, and mine's dark and dingy. Now, if it was the only one that I needed, I would choose that one. Why? Because
Same
it-
bedroom,
3-bedroom
a
baths,
year apart.
yeah, year apart. Are you kind of picking it up a little bit, you
Yeah.
guys, in terms of what we're looking for? I'm really, it doesn't go this slow when you're doing it. I'm just explaining the step-by-step process, okay?
Kind of smaller though.
Yeah, it is a little smaller. 1978 versus 2058 is still less than 100
Oh.
square feet, so not
I was
bad.
looking at
Yeah.
one, I was thinking the same.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is a sold. You know, I'm going to look at when it's sold. This is for Lester's benefit, especially. When did it sell? When did it close? Days on market 24.
Oh, okay.
It's still, is it pending or is that active? Oh, that's an active listing. I don't want that.
No.
That didn't tell me a blasted thing because the market hasn't said what it's worth.
So
It
why
just
do you
says what
have-
my competition
I
is.
thought we were just checking closed.
I'm just curious why you include the active ones then, just to see.
Yeah, I'm just, so that's kind of towards the end of my listing presentation. I pull the actives and I go, here's our competition. Here's what our house is approximately worth within 5 or 10,000, and here's what the active, come on out.
A buyer coming through is going to see this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're gonna look at that. Where do we want to price ours? And so it's kind of important to include actives so we can show them, okay, here's your competition, here's what we're worth. You know, we in relation to the competition, you know, we're $20,000 less. That's probably why they're not selling. So I would recommend, based on the adjustments, what do you think your home is worth, Mr. and Ms. Seller? And they tell you, well, I think you're right, that's why those aren't selling. Exactly. So, anyway, we go through here and we picked 4. Alderbrook, Century Oak, and Century Oak. They're all right around the corner from each other in this particular case. Okay? So we're going to go back to the results. And all I did was note the MLS numbers, which are right there. Let's see, where's the MLS number at the top of each one? 171-58755. But I'm going to go right here down to Toolkit, and I'm just walking you through 20 steps. Okay, this is all on the 20 steps. I'm going down to Toolkit, and I'm going down to what are we trying to do with CMA, right? So I'm going to hit CMA profiles. And it's going to pull up the CMA that I was working on for them. And what did I call that one? It's the Holden. So I'm going to go down to Holden, see if they're there. These are ones that I've done in the past.
Holden Trust.
There it is right there. Now, I already went in on this one ahead of time for you guys and kind of put in the data, like the square footage, the year that it was built, and that kind of a thing. But I'm going to hit edit since I had already pre-done that. I mean, you can do that. You can get it ready to go, then go to the house, snap your picture, do your walkthrough, talk about them the whole time. It's not about you, right? It's all about them on every single transaction. I'd love it to be about me sometimes, but that doesn't get me business, so. So here's what it looks like when you pull up the CMA profile. You have the overview of what the CMA profile is. You have the subject property. And so we go in, and I had already filled in 15295 Southwest Allerbrook Court. Here's a picture of the house. That's the one you see on page 1, right? Area 151, Washington County, City, Tigard, Oregon 97224. You know, it's funny, there's parts that say City, Tigard. In King City, it also say Tigard, and it's actually in King City. It's the weirdest thing. I was pricing a property the other day, just to tell you sometimes how hard our jobs can be. It was a piece of land, and the sale occurred with a Sherwood address in the city of Tigard in the Beaverton School District. It says Sherwood. It's right off of Roy Rogers and Shoals Ferry, but it's a little bit south of Shoals Ferry, and all that property where the new high school's being built. The city of Sherwood, you know, and so the lady at the city of Tigard said, well, it's kind of where the post office, you know, has nothing to do with where the taxes are going. But I said, but you did the planning for the subdivision, 231 lots, but the taxes are going to Shoals Ferry? I mean to Beaverton for schools? I don't get that. Well, it's a complicated joint venture, Dave. You know, I'm like, tell me about it. I mean, you know, I got to use that for a comp for a property in Sherwood. You know, but it's really a good comp, even though it was Tigard, because it's urban growth boundary. The preliminary plat's already been approved for 231 lots. It's a great comp. It's less than 2 miles from my land comp. It's probably going to be about the same. Tigard and Sherwood prices are about the same anyway. But I mean, oh my goodness. City of Sherwood, or Sherwood, City of, it's actually Tigard Planning, Beaverton School District. Anyway, okay, so that can be goofy. You gotta be pulling the right comps, right, you guys? Okay, so in here, they'll give you a choice to, when you click on the map, to adjust the map location. In this case, I'm not going to do it because it looks like it's right on. The pin is perfect. I'm going to hit save. And then I'm going to go over here. What am I going to do? Upload my photo. Choose the file. Hit upload. And I got my photo. What's the next thing on the tab to do? I'm going to my features. Super important right here about features. Can't stress it enough. The square footage auto-populated, the acres, the lot size auto-populated, the total bathrooms auto-populated, the bedrooms auto-populated. Now, there's all sorts of things you can check. You see the boxes, the blues and the whites. Some are not checked, some are. Mine is a 3-level. do you think it would be important to check that box and because mine's 3 and then the comps are all 2? Yeah, because your seller's going to want to go, what did the tri-level sell for? Well, just FYI, you guys, the last tri-level that sold in Somerville was 12 years ago. I went back 12 years to find it. Probably not going to be accurate on the appreciation adjustment. So what does that tell you, by the way, about elderly, or no, I should say the politically correct is senior citizen, right? The senior citizens, what does that tell you about them on tri-levels?
They love it and then they won't.
I don't like them.
They don't like them.
No, they want one level.
They want 1 levels.
It's not accessible.
Yeah. Well, you know what? You're going to be possibly pricing for your mom and dad. You're going to be pricing for perhaps your mom and dad's referral. In this particular case, this was a trust that called me and said, hey, we noticed your sign. There was 4 daughters involved in selling it. Didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole because I would have probably never, ever gotten agreement. That would have been a tough one because, for me, because, you know, I knew one of the 4 daughters. And she goes, are you sure you really want it? I said, no. Is that okay? Are we still going to be friends? Absolutely. I've sold their kids' like 5 houses in the last 7 or 8 years. And I want to, you know, this was a really hard one. All the stuff was in it. The daughters, they wanted to leave all the stuff in it and not get it vacant and not paint it. I'm not going to do that. So,
They need a real estate investor.
They do. But in this case, I made adjustments. So, and by the way, I assumed that the condition was going to be better than what it was when I saw it. So the garage, here's the exterior description. In this case is aluminum, and that is actually, I decided I wanted to do it because I believe some of the other houses didn't have aluminum. They had actually wood siding. That's actually another, some seniors would look at that and go, well, that's kind of cool. Aluminum, I don't have to touch that. There's not any maintenance and a 50-year warranty. Well, I mean, if the house is 40 years old, and you got aluminum and a bunch of dents in it, and they got to replace it in 10 years, they may not even be alive by the time they got to replace it. Who knows? But I did it because in terms of selling it today, the market actually looks a little bit inferior to aluminum siding as opposed to good wood siding. So, and I'm just doing it also for the purpose of today. So I've gone through and made adjustments to help you think through certain characteristics that are important to think through when doing a CMA. The garage, it's important that it's attached, but I also want to compare if it's a 2 or 3 car or 1 or 2 car, right? Because on my adjustments page, garages, believe it or not, you know what the market thinks that garage, a 2 versus a 3 car garage is? The difference in the adjustment? $10,000.
Really?
$10,000 for the difference between a 3 car versus a 2 car, a 2 car versus a 1 car.
Is that including a tandem as well? I mean,
Yeah, it's $5,000 for a tandem because it's in the same drive-through. So if you have a 3 car with 2 in 1 lane, so it's really a 2 car wide, but it's 3 car deep.
Okay.
The market says, oh my gosh, honey, you got to go move your car for me to get out this morning. I don't want to pay $5,000 more for that compared to that 3-bedroom. If you see what I'm saying?
3 car.
You gotta like back the cars out, you know, let the spouse go into work, you know, and then put the other car in or leave that out. It's not, the market will not bear the same if it was a 3 car separate.
Garage, yeah. Huh.
But it's worth something because you have additional space. Appraisers are using $5,000 for that additional tandem. If you're looking at a 3 car tandem versus a 2 car, what's the adjustment?
5,000.
5,000.
Wow.
So, be prepared to make sure you click the garage Now, if I'm comparing all two cars to two cars, I got four, I'll still click it, and I'll just, I'll walk down and say, as I'm going through, you'll see when we get to the end, I'm gonna go compare how I did each one, and I'll say, well, they had a two car and we had a two car, so there was no adjustment. Make sense? Or I'll say they had a three car versus a two car, I had to make a $10,000 adjustment because you only have a two car. Okay, so have I lost everybody? You tracking? All right. Number of levels. Kind of important. There were no 3 levels. We're only using 2. I'll show you how we're going to compare a 2 versus 3 level. I wish we could have found 3 tri-levels. But what does that tell you if we're doing a split entry?
Split entry.
Always pull split entries. No ifs, ands, or buts unless there's a tri-level.
What do you mean by split entry?
You have either the option of going up or down.
Oh,
When you walk in the door, it's
Okay.
like up or down.
okay, gotcha.
Which,
On a-
as opposed to a split level, which can be either.
The same thing, split level is the same thing. It's called a split.
Yeah.
But a tri-level is you're walking in, you've got an area that you can live on.
Main
And a
area.
split entry, you don't have an area you can live on. You're hitting steps going up or down.
Right.
But on a tri-level, you're walking in and you have some area that you can live in, and then you can look maybe down from the kitchen and see a downstairs family room or media room or whatever. But then you have to go upstairs to the bedroom. So you have truly 3 levels.
Okay.
That is different, by the way, than 2-story above grade with a daylight basement. Because when you get to the main level, you only have a set of stairs that goes down to a basement, and now you're going up. So you have 2 stories that are above
Mm-hmm.
at $50 a foot,
Mm-hmm.
and 1 down below at $25. On the tri-level, you could probably use a tri-level to compare it with the 2-level with the daylight, because that's as close as you can get. But the tri-level in every situation is cheaper to build, because you got 2 stories technically above. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
That basement. So full stories. So split entry, use a split entry, because they're normally selling for 10%, 8% less in the market for the same square footage as a 2-story above grade, a split. I mean, that's a pretty big number. If you use a split and you're trying to price a 2-level home, you're going to have a problem with that. You'll be off. So in this case, I put in neighborhood. I checked the neighborhood box. If I was going to go to other neighborhoods, I might also check that box. But I just did it for the purpose of the presentation today. Square footage. The lower on the tri was 360. The upper on the main was 1,100. And the main floor was 1,100. And the upstairs where the bedrooms are and 1 bath was 588. On the style, what did I choose?
Try.
There it is,
Right.
tri-level, right? And then, and you guys can be adding this, by the way, if you want. Hopefully you are. If not, you can just follow along. Year built, put in there 1977. Why? Because the difference between 77 and 87 in this quality of home, a appraiser is normally going to adjust $1,000 to $2,000 for every year between the difference of age, to a maximum of 10 years. So the adjustment will never be more than $20,000 on age, on year built, and it could be as low as maybe 10 if it's a 10-year difference. Sometimes, you only got 3 years difference, and depending if I'm using 1 or 2,000, you could have, that's a $10,000 adjustment, a pretty big number on the comp that's got, let's say, it's newer built, right? So you want to always put age in there, year built.
So your sheet says not to exceed 10K. Should that actually say not to exceed 10 years?
No,
You said
because
it could be
it could
20,000.
be, yeah. So, so on the more expensive homes, we're using 2.
Yeah.
there's a 2K adjustment for.
Times 10 years.
It's just
would be
normal
20.
depreciation,
Okay.
just the age of wear and tear on a house,
Right,
you know? But I also have a condition adjustment, so anything above 10,000, I go up to my condition and I'll look and tell, and hopefully I don't, maybe the conditions are exactly the same.
Okay.
Most of the times they're not. But we'll talk about condition in a little bit, because it's an extremely important adjustment.
okay,
In this case, oh, look at that, number one, condition. So that the boilerplate for the RMLS does not include condition as one of these stock items. You have to add condition in there. A couple of my comps were on the golf course. So I had to put view of the golf course. Guess what? We had a view of the golf course, but we were across the street. It was on a corner lot. That's another thing. It was on a corner lot with a street in between the edge of their lot and the golf course. And I'm walking out after I just walked through the house, and I'm not kidding you, a golf ball comes flying by my head
Oh, God.
and goes about 30 feet in the air because it hits the street and goes all the way down the street. And I didn't know if I should run after the ball for the guy, but I thought, you know, if you hit it that bad, I'm not running after that ball. So, but the homeowner goes, see, we're kind of part of the golf course. And I'm like, yeah, well, the view is out one window from the kitchen, but they have some kind of a view. So we're going to probably give them a little bit of adjustment for somebody that didn't. It just happens to be that a couple of the comps had views of, they're on the golf course. There is a definite number for the difference between being on the golf course and not being on the golf course. I'm not going to go through it and show you how we did that, because I would have to go back and pull several comps to show you, but you can tell that similar two-style home on the golf course or one-style home on the golf course comparing to other one-style homes that aren't, it's a number right there. And it could be anywhere from 15,000 to 30, 40,000 bucks. Big number to be on the golf course. One of the comps had a green space, so I put that in my features. So you have to have the comps out in front of you, looking at the comps, looking at the difference between your subject property that you're doing on Alderbrook and the ones that are on, the subject, the four that we chose. And it happens to be, as I was reading through the features, that one of them happened to have a green space. Another important thing, when the property sold, why would that be important?
So how recent it is.
Shows how recent it is. Exactly. If it's sold in May and we're comping a house right now in October, has there been appreciation since May?
no. Wasn't May kind of the peak?
Tricky. I mean,
Tricky.
Yeah, because there's been time.
Yeah.
And yet the market softened, so it's kind of counter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there has been some.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
It's gone up just been
Not
Maybe
as
1 or
much.
2%.
Not as
Maybe
much as what people were used to.
no. In a year, we were seeing like 6 to 11, so 1% a month. And if you've got 6 months separating a comp, that could be 10, 11, 12%.
Mm-hmm.
You got to get it in there. That's a big number on appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
But in this case, these were kind of close, but there was some difference. So what did I do? I just went into, in this particular case, instead of trying to go into the neighborhood specific, I went into just Tigard and pulled the number out for Tigard to get the yearly, and then used that and kind of some common sense. And when am I selling this? October versus the ones that sold in June, May, April. The market was really hot then, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So there probably wasn't much adjustment, if anything. But we'll put it in there because I want to show you that. So once you've completed doing your features, which are really based on your comps and what your subject home has, you might have view of 3 mountains, right? You might have backs to a river, backs to a lake. When you're comparing, you're trying to get apples to apples, you guys. So if your subject is on the lake and your 3 comps are not on the lake, you better know what lake homes are selling for on the lake. And I know what a knockdown is on the lake. You know, if it's 200 square feet or it's 1,200 square feet, and I'm gonna knock that thing down, but it's got a main lake view, it's $1 million difference than one across the street that's not on the lake. That's what the number is. If I'm selling in first edition in Lake Oswego, and I'm gonna knock down the house, whether it's 300 square foot house or it's a 2,000 square foot house, and that house is coming down because I want to build a big, beautiful house, the knockdown price is now up to 600,000 for that lot. 10,000 square foot or 7,500 square foot, 600 grand. Back in 2011, during the height of the market, it went down to 300. I'm sorry, yeah, during the low of the market, it went down to 300. It's already doubled in the value of that lot since 2011. So in 6 years, in first edition, that's quite a number. So anyway, you guys are gonna know this kind of stuff the more you sell. I'm gonna hit save, and so it's saved all of those boxes that I checked. And now I'm gonna go into the comparables, and this is where I'm going to add my comparables. So here's the 4 properties we chose, and we added those. It gives you a when you hit comparables, it gives you a blank, and then you just put them in and then hit save, and then it auto populates your comps out like this. And if you want, by the way, you can move these up and down. See what I'm doing? If you want to put them in order of the low price to the high price, there you go. Now we're going to hit, it already said it was saved, so now I'm going to hit next, go to the next tab, which is the adjustments. Now we're going to get into some nitty gritty. Be a great time to take a break. Okay?
Take about a 15-minute break, does that work?
Yeah, let's do it.
And then we'll come back here. All right.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. No, better now. This is really a simple program, you guys. I'd recommend you use that. I print the adjustments pages and include that the way that it comes out. I'll show you how to do that at the end, but I do that with and use Cloud CMA often just because it's a lot prettier, you know. But here is the adjustments. The first house is a 2-story. It looks like a 1-story, doesn't it? It's actually 2 stories. If you go down to the 2 stories, you'll see that it's 600 upstairs and 1,200 downstairs. It auto-populates all this information here in the left-hand column. Because ours hasn't sold, it doesn't auto-populate, but here is the subject property and here's the comp on this side. So we have when it sold, what it sold for, the list price, the sold price, days on market. So going back to features, by the way, one thing I forgot to mention, this will auto-populate in terms of the size of the lot, and it's always 0.13. If it doesn't auto-populate, you need to put a 0 in front of that. You can't just put 0.13. If you do, this is what pops up. Please enter only numbers. So you just put in a 0 in front of it. Total bathrooms, bedrooms. But down here, I don't check lot size because this gives it to you in the categories, and this gives it to you up above in the acres. And in this case, the lots are all pretty much the same. And when there's not a big difference in the lot size, we don't make an adjustment. But when you get it like 0.13 versus 0.26, you got a problem. And so you have to make an adjustment for size for the lot. And normally what you're trying to do on size, you go to your adjustment page and look for each category group that we've already got. Typically it's like 5 to 10 grand per difference. So if you got a 5,000 versus a 10,000 square foot lot, the market might bear around $10,000 or so for that difference. Make sense? So acres is important, but you don't want to make the adjustment in 2 sections or 2 columns, because then you're putting in 2 minuses or 2 pluses or 2 different numbers. You only want to either adjust where it compares acres or where it compares lot size. Does that make sense? And I'm going to show you again what I'm talking about. Go to adjustments. You see where the acres are? If these go in alphabetical order on the left, you would have lot size down here. So you would have, you only want to make it in one spot, this adjustment, this number right here. Well, say if it was 0.26 instead of 0.11, I'd have a $10,000 adjustment I'd have to put in here. Mine's 0.13, and if it's 0.26, I'm going to have to put a minus because I got to bring the comp down to meet mine. So I'm subtracting, right? In this case, this is 0, by the way, because the difference in size is just minimal. I mean, that's not even of any consequence. Bathrooms, 2.5 versus 2.5. Would I make an adjustment for the difference in that? No. Okay. Bedrooms. Aha. I got a 2 versus 3.
Adjustment.
Yeah. The subject property has 3 and this comp had 2.
Take 5,000.
Probably I would be adding,
Right.
because the comp is inferior, and I'm adding 10,000 for the difference in bedroom in this particular case. 2 versus 3 is huge. Condition, I'm going to come back to that, okay? Exterior description. The subject property that we're given an opinion of value on is aluminum, and the subject sold on 10555 Century is wood. I'm going to go to, normally I wouldn't even screw with it, but in this case, for the example of what we're doing, I'm just going down several to show you what it might be. What's my difference? I forget, and I should know that.
5,000.
5,000. So since the comp is wood and mine is aluminum, and comp is viewed as better, I would deduct 5,000 from the comp's price to get it to come down to match the aluminum. Garage, they're both attached and they're both 2-car. Are we making an adjustment? No. Green space, neither one of them are on a green space, no adjustment. Heat, again, I normally wouldn't use this, but because it's only $2,500, but I made an adjustment for $2,500. Ours has a heat pump, the subject does not. I had to add $2,500 to get it to come up to meet my subject property. Make sense? Levels. 2-story more beneficial or a 3-story more beneficial to seniors?
2.
Kind of a subjective adjustment right here. Yeah, they want master on the main. They're okay with the bedroom up, but they don't want to be walking 3 levels, 3 stairs. Or, yeah, 1, 2. Yeah, there's still 2 stairs, but it's 3 different levels. They're always going down to live in the family room, coming up to go into the kitchen, going up to get to the bathrooms. There's no bathroom on the main level on this comp house also. That's a killer. But subjective number there. I mean, it might be 10,000. The market's gonna tell us. Might be 5. Okay, neighborhood's the same, no adjustment. Square footage is a little bit different. Here's how we're gonna make the difference in square footage. You ready? The comparable has no basement. We have 360 square feet. That's an advantage. We have additional living square footage there, but it's only priced at about 25 or 30 bucks a foot. So if you take 25 or 30 bucks a foot times 360, you get 9,000. So because ours is superior and we're trying to get the subject to come up to ours, we had to add $9,000 to the comp's price. Make sense? Conversely, we had 1,100 square feet on the main and they got 1,212. Which one is better?
One with
The
12.
comp. We're taking $5,600. So the difference between $45 a foot is that number right there. It's $5,600. So because the comp was greater, I had to reduce their price by $5,600 to get it to match our level. And then the upper square footage, check this one out. We're 588, they're 600. It's a minor adjustment, but I'm trying to show the seller that I took all 3 levels to figure out their square footage difference. And in this case, the 12 square feet at $50 a foot was 600 bucks. So I used 50 on that 5,600. And it looks like the 25 on the 360.
Right.
Okay. View of the golf course. Very obvious that the views are about 15,000, by the way, because I looked at different houses on the golf course to compare them with other houses not on the golf course. I just took single levels. What are those single levels on the golf course selling for versus single levels that aren't? And it looks like it's about 15, 20, whatever grand. When the property sold, when did this one sell?
16. August of 16.
August of 16. It goes back a while, doesn't it? We're a year out. So there is a year difference of appreciation there, which came out to about $21,945. And I had to add to the comp to bring it up to our house because our house, it's gone up. We're selling it today, and that one sold a year ago, and the prices are different. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, year built. Used $1,000 in this price range because it's not that expensive of a home. It's not quality A construction, but 1973 versus 1977, you got about $4,000 difference. Came out to about $4,000. I'm sorry, 4 years at $1,000 would be $4,000 because mine is a newer home built in 77 versus the one in 73. So after all of that, there was only $1,755 in adjustments, and it made it come out to $416,245. Got it?
I do have one question.
Yes.
I saw like how you did the square footage adjustments and stuff, put a price on that, but what about like the heat? Like how did you come up with $2,500?
That's just what the appraisers are using. The difference between a heat pump versus a typical furnace with central air conditioning.
Is there like a cheat sheet for these numbers or?
Yeah, it's on your very
Oh,
back.
is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
It's on-
Okay, what
it's
a
on-
relief. Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
So I had a question on the adjustment for when the house sold. So it was a year ago, a little more than. The total adjustment there seems to be just over 5%. And so where did you got that number? Where going into RMLS and seeing what the prices did in that year
In
period
Tigard.
of time?
Mhm,
In
in
Tigard?
Tigard.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 years ago it was like 12, 13, something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You can just divide it out by 12 times the number of months between when your comp sold and when you. Yeah. And, with that, they should be pretty happy. Now, I'm going back to the condition adjustment. I marked it down 18,000. And the reason is, remember, my subject, they're not doing anything. They're not replacing carpet, they're not painting. They've got a house full of stuff that's stuffed so much you have to walk through aisles. And they want to sell it before the estate sale. I know, exactly, that's what I thought.
Good luck.
Yeah. And,
Oh, man.
and so I'm thinking to myself, okay, paint, carpet, store, you know, they got to get stuff in storage. So paint, carpet, I'm not paying for staging. If it was $1 million house, I might pay for staging. But for normal, you know, and actually, if you think through it, staging works great on houses, except, you know, the vacant house can actually be an advantage for buyers, multiple buyers in the market to move in because you can close it sooner and get in, especially in a market where there's no inventory. So vacant is like, they're thinking, great, we can move in. You know, they're willing to maybe pay a little bit more for that. You're going to have pictures that are going to kill you though. So, you know, in that case, I would probably use a company called Virtuance and have them go in and add, do some virtual staging. You have to disclose that, but you would want those pictures to draw people online. And you get more hits when you do that too. I don't know if they can actually do a video tour and add virtual staging in a video tour.
I haven't seen it.
I haven't either. That'd be kind of cool if
New
they
niche
do
for
it.
you, Brandon.
That'd be so hard. Lots of work.
Yeah, they have all kinds of stuff out there. They have the bad reports and all that too. It's pretty cool. Have you seen those?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in this case, I just said carpet, paint, spruce up the roof, clean it all out. There's about an $18,000 improvement there. And so I'm not going to add any profit in there or sweat equity that the sellers are doing it, and it only cost them 11. I'm just saying commercially, it's going to be about 18, 20 grand. I gave them an adjustment downward compared to this comp. If you go into the comp's pictures and you look at this, at these pictures of their inside, it's definitely at least 20,000 bucks, 18,000, 15,000 difference. So I went ahead and I marked the condition of the home down 18,000, the comp, to get it to come down to our crazy looking level, because it was crazy looking. Okay, does that make sense? It all came out to 416, 245. Let's go to the next one. You just click on that and you can pull it up. You can see the little second story there. The other picture didn't have it. I thought they were kind of trying to make it look like this is an identical floor plan to the one we just did, I think. Yeah, a little bit different. It's got more square footage upstairs. 2,000, man, it's like right next to ours. But here's a great example, you guys, of why you don't use price per square foot. Check this out. The square footage of the comp is 2,052 and ours is 2,048. 4 square feet difference. But look at the difference in value after you make the adjustments for the downstairs versus the upstairs. Do you see? You have 18,200 and 9,000. There's a $9,000 difference in value because of less value in our home, the subject, versus a normal 2-story because they don't have a basement, because it's calculated at a different price per square foot for the basement.
Because they're distributed on 2 floors instead of 3.
Instead of 3.
Yeah.
You see how you could make a big mistake? So, so in this case, whoops, they had a view of the golf course too, but let's go back to this one that sold for $435. Lot size is about the same, number of bathrooms is the same, number of bedrooms is the same. Oh, this is gonna be an easy one. Condition I'll come back to. In this particular case, I looked at it and said, looks like there's about $7,500 in difference. And I can't remember if it was carpet or paint, but it was like kind of carpet and paint right in there, a little bit. We had wood, they had aluminum. Uh-oh, we forgot to
Okay.
make a adjustment. Garage description, 2-car versus 2-car, no difference. This particular comp's not on a green space, ours wasn't either. There's their forced air versus a heat pump. It should be on your adjustments on the back page. Normally, it could be 3,500, 2,500. For this age of both of them, I used 2,500. It's a definite advantage for having a heat pump because your monthly costs are quite a bit lower and the market views that as really a good feature, having a heat pump. This is the perfect climate, by the way, in the United States to have a heat pump
Instead of forced air.
instead of forced air with an AC, central AC.
Huh.
Yeah. You'd never know it. And I'm getting kind of nitty gritty here, a little too picky. I probably wouldn't have included it normally, but I just wanted to show you. If you want to, you can. In this case, it was about 2,500, 3,500 or so in difference in price. Number of levels, they got 2, we got 3. Is that an advantage or disadvantage? It's a disadvantage for us.
Right.
This is an over 55?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I had to bring it down, had to bring the 2-story comp that sold for a certain price down 5,000. And there's the square footage adjustments based on $25 and $50 a foot, or 45, I think. Might have been 50. 50.
Yeah.
I got a tri-level versus a 2-story. I've already made that adjustment in number of levels. It just wanted to show them that the difference in the style. View of the golf course. We were off the course. The other one is on the course. We have a little bit of a view, maybe worth $5,000. They're on the golf course, maybe worth 20. So the difference between the 20 and the 5 is 15. When did it sell?
2016 again.
Yep, 5 May. So we had
15, 16 months.
And by the way, these are the only 2-story comps that sold, that are similar to square footage. There's a lot of 2-stories that are like 2,400, 2,500 that might be a little closer. I might have been able to use those instead, but these were closer in condition.
So you give more credibility or credence to the square footage and condition than you would to the time sold.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. Now an appraiser can't. But if we're off on the appraisal, he comes in low, I'm going to show him my adjustments and go, I kind of went back a little further and just adjusted for appreciation. Well, we really can't go past 6 months, Dave, but I get what you're trying to do. You're trying to establish a market value listed at. So, yeah, I kind of agree with you. I'd go up in value. I'll agree with you. You know what happens, you guys, is everybody familiar with what happens? Kasha, I'm sure is, because she's been doing it for a while. But you sell a house for $450, the appraisal comes in at $425. What happens?
We've got to account for that other 25,000.
25,000.
Where that 25K is coming from.
Coming from somebody. Hopefully it's you. You're able to show the appraiser why the house is worth $450. Sometimes you win some and sometimes you lose some.
It's what it pays to play nice again.
If it's my buyer, I'm going to, go back and I'm going to go, well, that's weird because we bought it for $450 and there was 3 offers. If I'm the listing agent and you're working with a co-op agent, you're going to call them and go, uh-oh, what do? We got a problem. And the appraisal is going to go into immediate review with the appraisal management company. They're going to have another appraiser look at the numbers and his adjustments and see if it comes out to the 425 or 450. Normally, the appraisers on that review board side with their own colleague. So you have to be able to prove the difference. How do you do that if you're using the price per square foot method? There's no way to do it. But if you're using the adjustment method, you can go, hey, I'm looking at your appraisal, and you didn't give any adjustment for condition. And do you know this one comp that you used was completely, hadn't been remodeled at all, and our house has been remodeled. There's value in that remodel, don't you think, Mr. Miss? Now, I'm not talking condescendingly to that appraiser, because that's the last thing I want to do. I want to talk really professionally with them. Can we talk to appraisers? Mm-hmm. Sure. Absolutely. And normally when, I take the listing, I put it in the instructions to show, armless lockbox appointment only. If it wasn't appointment only, because I don't like appointment only while I'm just selling a house, because you're limiting the number of showings by doing that. I like to just make it as easy as possible for access. But as soon as that thing goes pending, I'm changing appointment only. Who's that benefit for? The appraiser. So I can give him his packet that shows the comps, the adjustments, and the copies of page 1 of the multiple price offers with the buyer's name X'd out or blacked out, so that he can see that we have multiple offers, and that they were more money, and they came in at $450 or whatever it was. They were more than the list price, or maybe that buyer got it for $450, but he came in at $425, and you didn't make contact with him and tell him there was multiple offers. You got to make contact with him and tell him there's multiple offers. Here's your packet, and when he walks in the door, you've almost done your job for him. So he loves that, or she loves that. Why? She runs back to her house that night to do it. She's got 3 of them to do from the day. She can get hers done in 5 minutes with yours, because you're just giving her all the information. And giving her, so you want to avoid the other thing that's very prevalent going on right now with, this, appraisers are very stressed out right now. And it's hard to get them sometimes. And it's softened up a little bit. Now it's easier to get them. But during that hard time, and we've seen a pickup in the last week or so of activity, but I have one going on right now where we have a counter offer that happened on a house. I'm representing the buyer, and a good agent from RE/MAX is representing the seller. The lender emailed me during our break and said, hey, I just got back from a 2-week vacation and I got 300 emails to get through. Can you send me the sale agreement? Well, 3 times since last summer, midsummer, I've had appraisers forget to appraise it at the sold price that was on the counter offer, and they appraised it at what the buyer offered on page 1. Because they either lost the counter offer, they weren't provided the counter offer, or they never saw the counter offer and they're not admitting it. I've had all of those situations happen in the last 6 months, 5 months, 4 months. And I'm like, I had one guy, we waited 5 weeks, we were closing in 6 weeks, so he waited 5 weeks to call me, and he goes, hey Dave, I'm going to be appraising the house tomorrow. I went, oh, I'm so happy. We're closing in 6 days. Can you get the appraisal back really quick? He goes, yeah, I can get it back quick. Yeah. Could you get it back tomorrow? Because, your appraisal's going to have to go to underwriting, and that's going to take a few days. And my clients are stuck in Minneapolis, are trying to buy a house, and they can't buy a house until they get our money. And he goes, well, can you send me a copy of the sale agreement? I went, excuse me? It's been 5 weeks and you don't have a copy of the sale agreement? Your AMC didn't give it to you? No, I don't have it from anybody. I went, I'll email it to you in 3 minutes. I had to email him the sale agreement. That's unexcusable to me. So, but I had to get him the sale agreement. What did I make sure he got? The counter, and also the price reduction on the roof that was bad. And we got 3 bids on the roof. It was $10,000 per bid on average for a 25-year comp for this size house. They were all within like $400 of each other. It was crazy. They're all doing it with aerial now, by the way. They're hardly even going. They don't even go to the house. They just do it on
Google Maps.
Google.
Really?
Yeah. And so I called the agent back and I said, well, you guys are getting $5,000 in value. You're getting at least a 50% in value on that. You know, we'll give you $5,000 off the price, not 10, for the replacement. Oh, that makes sense, Dave. I mean, you're getting value when you put a new roof on, right? Normally it's 50 to 60%, so you never want to give the buyer a full discounted, or do the roof, I mean, if you were to put the house back on the market with the new roof, could you sell it for $5,000 more? Probably so. So you convince the other agent, hey, you know, we'll split the difference. How's that? And we'll take it off the price. So the appraiser didn't even know that. You know, we dropped the price $5,000. He goes, what's this reduction for seller closing costs? I said, the roof is probably gonna need to be replaced in 5 years. It's not shot. It'll certainly last at least 3 years, which is all you care about, but we gave him a $5,000 adjustment. Oh, great, that's perfect, no problem. So because you could talk in terms of adjustments, you have a huge advantage over a regular realtor. And that's why it needs to come out during the listing presentation, and it needs to be one of your USBs. So in this case, the thing came out to 427 after all of our adjustments. What was our first one, you guys?
416 and change.
Yeah. So we got 416 and 427. Are we narrowing in on maybe what it's worth?
Yeah.
I think it's funny it's listed for 439. Anyway. Let's go to the next
About
one.
what all these are, huh?
Let's go to the third
Amazing
one.
Furniture adds up.
What's
All
that?
the amazing furniture inside.
Yeah.
Very cool.
We're going to go back and look at it.
Grab bags.
Because it probably would have just gone on if they were getting close to doing it. All four daughters had 4 realtors, by the way.
Oh my god. And you didn't want to play.
No.
I don't get it.
Yeah. If I was newer, I would probably have done everything I could to get the listing, but I'm not.
Right.
So, in this case, and the trustee had another trustee who was a CPA and was a husband of one of the daughters. I mean, it was really it was one of the messiest trusts I've ever seen. I just finished closing a sale for a gal. Well, she was my client at one time, but the trustee was like, "Whatever you say, Dave, goes." You know, I'm like, "Sign here."
Yeah.
Anyway, let's look at this comp. This is the one on 10335 Century Oak. We have 15 more minutes, and I'm going to try to leave a few minutes for questions too, if you have any. Exterior description, we've got, looks like the lot size is the same, the bathrooms are the same, the bedrooms are the same, so there's no adjustments. Condition is about the same. Interesting. Exterior description, 5,000. You know, we got aluminum, they got cedar. That's about as good as you can get in the market, especially well-maintained cedar siding. Heat, there's that $2,500 adjustment. Number of levels, there it is again. Whoa, 2,052 versus 2,048. Same as the last comp, must have been the same floor plan sold. Your difference, again, was nearing 18,200 versus 9,000 for what you're getting for the downstairs 360 square feet. Same square footage, $9,000 difference in price, right there. Talked about that earlier. View of the golf course, this one was on the golf course. We do have a little bit of a view, but we're not on it, so it's about $15,000 down. When it sold, this one sold a little more recent. It sold in January of 2017. So we only went back 8 months, not 12 or 13. And then the year built, there's that $1,000 a year, 74 versus 77. That one came out to 429. Versus, what was the last comp?
427?
427. Pretty cool, huh?
And 416.
427 versus 429. I'm kind of honing in on maybe what it's worth. Until we get to the last comp, which is just down the street, 3 houses away. That one came out to 407. After all the adjustments.
And it's a much more recent sale.
It's extremely recent. There's been no appreciation since then. They're both built in 77. It's on a green space and it has a view of the golf course. So you have an adjustment down for green space and golf course. So I came in, if you go to the recommended price, I didn't recommend a price because I wanted to discuss it to figure out what the seller is trying to, what they think their home is worth. If you come in up front and you recommend a price before you find out what you think it's worth, that could be a real problem because let's say you think it's worth 425 and they're thinking 450. You better know that before you go into the presentation. So normally what I do when they call me and say, hey Dave, I'm thinking about putting the house on the market, I go, great. I have kind of this two-step approach. And the two-step approach is I want to come just walk around the property with you, ask you some questions. I need to take some notes so I can go do my homework and do the comparables and what those sold for in your neighborhood. But can you kind of give me an idea, Mr. and Ms. Seller, what do you think your house is going to sell for? And they'll go, well, that's kind of why we want you to come over. And I go, well, I know you want a price out of me just by my gut feel, but I never do that. It's not a good thing to do that. But I'm going to be honest with you, and you know me. I've sold houses before, or let's say in this case we haven't. But I am going to be honest with you, and that's my job to be honest. But I'm just trying to get a feel for what you think it's worth. And they'll normally 9 times out of 10 tell you. And it's good to know because if I've got something coming out at 400 and they're thinking 450, I'm going to have to really spend time on educating them on adjustments. Because after I go through that process, that method helps me get them from 450 to 400.
Does it help to also know where they got that number from? If they pulled it off Zillow, for example, you know what you're arguing against?
Yeah. If you're bold enough to go ahead and ask them that, yeah. I would probably go to Zillow and see if that's where they pulled it. I'm going to look on Redfin. I'm going to look on Zillow. Mm-hmm. You can get a pretty good number to see that the sellers that's where they're kind of deriving their opinion.
Yeah, if they're like quoting those numbers exactly.
Yeah.
It's like Zillow said 428, so I think it's 428.
Yeah, exactly. The authority is Zillow. It's not us, right? Wrong. It is us. So, what you can do on here is if you want, you can put in the minimum and the maximum. And the recommended price. I'll just put this in, I don't know why, but and then you're going to hit save somewhere. Oh yeah, over here, save. And then you're going to go to the cover page. You're going to put in 3 features here. You can also, there's room to put in some narrative if you want. Corner lot with view of golf course. That's here's the window and the golf course is over here. High ceilings with great open field to main floor. Newer roof, approximately 5 years old, and new heat pump and furnace in 2016. So there's just kind of 3 nice little things for the front page. It's got my picture on there. Use the subject photo. You want to click that. And now we're going to go to the report. Content pages, actually, let's click on that. for this particular one, let's see. You can use, you have the chance to put in a resume if you want. You can use that. You can actually go in under preferences and build your resume if you want to include that in here. You saw what I did. Here's my resume on page 2, right? It's the list of my USPs. You know, I didn't talk about my Bachelor in Science from University of Oregon, and I didn't talk about my years working for national sales organizations. I only talked about my 22 years in real estate, how many homes I've sold, how much faster I sell my homes for on average, and how much more money I get for them on average. And then I also talked about, and you can use this one, I utilize leading edge technology, right? Brody and Tyler, we got Summa Home Search, we're using, Virtuance, high level technology. Another one, I network with top buyer agents. When we send out a just listed, it goes to agents working mostly with buyers. Why is that? Because they have the buyers.
We're looking for buyers. Yeah.
I'm mostly a listing agent, and I get something that says brand new home on the market, and it's a pump by another listing agent. They're pumping their price, their house. I don't know if it's 30,000 overpriced or 40,000 underpriced, but if I'm representing buyers, I'd be interested in seeing that, and I go, wow, that might fit one of my buyers. But I've got a whole list of buyers that I'm working with, and Dustin's working with, mostly buyers. I really don't care about that pump that listing agent's doing, because I'm mostly a listing agent. I spend 80% of my time marketing houses and 20% maybe working with buyers of sellers that are selling a house, and then they got to go find a house. So, long story short, we market. That's another USP you can use, because you can go right in there. A principal broker can pull out what are the strong agents in the RMLS, and there might be, I think we've got 1,200 of them that are working mostly with buyers, and you can see, that buyer did 14 sides on the buyer side and 2 on the listing side. That's a good buyer agent to market to, right? Or you can actually, even better, have the title company do it for you. Okay, but develop a list that you're going to market your listings to. I use that when I get to this, when I'm explaining this to my seller. I network with top buyer agents called target marketing in all places of the market, and spend approximately 80% of my time marketing your home. I gotta stand up, excuse me. Why do they want to know what you do during the day? Because they're paying you a lot of money, a ton of money, to market and sell their home. Do you want to tell them, well, I spend 90% of my time out with buyers showing property? Oh, so when I call you for follow-up feedback on a showing that we just had, you won't know. No, I'm going to know. And so that's why I spend 80% of my time marketing listing properties. Now, you may be a buyer's agent, and that's perfectly fine. Will doing a CMA like this help your buyer?
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yes.
You can say, this one's coming in a low of 407. It's but we've got 3 that are like between 420 and 427. So if that's the case, it's probably worth somewhere in there. And that buyer that bought it and made our house come out to 407, he probably got a heck of a good buy. Right? It's a good buy is why it's probably so low. Does that mean the house that we're buying is at between 420 and 427 is worth 407? No. It probably means the 407 guy got a great deal. You see what I'm saying? So when you're sitting down with your buyer and you're doing a CMA, you've just done it. I mean, I've got buyers that'll go, I'm ready to make an offer. I just saw a house. I love it. We did the open house. And what's the first thing I tell them? That is awesome. I need to drive by it and see it. And then I'll do my homework and I'll get back to you in 2 hours or 3 hours. Because I got to do a CMA on it to see what it's worth. Now, you may be in a situation, you call the listing agent, it's still available because I need to come see it. I've got 6 offers. Well, it's underpriced. So can I get 2 hours from you? Tyler, give me 2 hours to get by the house, and I'm pretty sure my buyer wants to submit an offer on it. It's a great house, it's perfect for what they're looking for. Absolutely, take 2 more hours. Well, I'm presenting in 2 more hours. Can you get it to me in an hour? Sure. You might have to do the CMA real quick before you write the offer, right? Because many situations like this where maybe the house is coming out to $450 in value and they got it listed at $425. And now you have to be able to show your buyer why it's worth $450. You've done your homework, you've done the CMA. You didn't maybe have the advantage of going through and seeing the house because they got multiple offers going, you don't want to lose out. But most of the time you do have, especially right now, what's happening is we go into a little slower time in the market. I'm not talking hugely slower, just a little bit slower. We have a little more breathing room. So
We got their pictures.
What's that?
You got their pictures from their listing.
Absolutely, you got their pictures. You can tell condition from pictures real easy. You can double click it and your whole screen comes up with a photo. Doug?
Do you always do a CMA for your buyers? Is that something that you kind of require yourself every time to do, or do you sometimes just talk it out with them?
Yes. The
Every
first time, every time.
Every time, okay.
And that every time means about 80%.
There's exceptions, right?
There's exceptions when there's 6 offers on the house and I have an hour to get the offer.
Yeah, exactly.
I can look at it and go, oh my gosh, that guy underpriced the house. And the obvious thing, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, how the market reacts to the listing price of your home, right? That we went in, that applies for a buyer too. Well, Dave, why has this been on the market? Because I know the agent and he's very unprofessional. It's a flag lot. It's on a super busy street. And it has a very unique floor plan. You have to walk through the master bedroom to get to the bonus so your kids can play. So every time the kids want to play in the bonus room, you got to walk through the master bedroom and through the closet to get to it. Why? Because the bonus room's over the garage and the master bedroom is too. And I'm not kidding you. There's a lot of them out there. That's a unique floor plan. Do you think that would be a deduction on your CMA?
Yep.
Hello? And the seller's not thinking. They think it's great to have that extra room there. Well, wait a second, Dave. We have outside stairs going right up to it. You don't have to do that. Oh, great. So I'm upstairs in the bonus room, or I'm in the master bedroom, and to get to my bonus room, I got to go downstairs, walk outside the house, and go up. That's a unique floor plan. That's a deduction. Off what? The comparable that has a bonus room, you don't have to run through when the couple's in bed and go to the bonus room. I literally had that happen not too long ago where I walked through a house out in Newburgh and it was listed at like $1.2 million something, and the agent called me back. Did your buyers love it? I go, they loved everything about it except for the fact you had to walk through the master bedroom to get to the bonus room. Had to walk through the closet. Bunch of clothes, and then had a door, regular door, and you walk right through. There's the bonus room. It was really cool.
My wife would just say, then that bonus room becomes the closet.
Yeah. The extension. You have this is your closet, the little one. The bonus room is
my room.
My room.
You got it.
That's my closet. Yeah. What was really funny is they had a mother-in-law living in it.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they had it was a beautiful piece of property, 5 acres, out in Brandon's country, wine country.
Wow.
You wake up and she's
Mother-in-law's
in the closet.
walking.
Yeah, hey, somebody's gonna need some therapy.
And the listing agent is a really good agent. They sell a lot of property out there. Dave, what'd you think? You have a real unique floor plan. That's a big deduction. I think you're overpriced. But, she goes, yeah, I know it. I just can't get my clients to understand and drop their price. You want to set them up ahead of time. By the way, if a house isn't selling, or if you're going to do a CMA, here's some significant factors that can affect a longer marketing time. Okay? But don't forget to deduct if you have comps that don't have a unique floor plan, right? Let's take some questions if you have some. We did some questions as we went, so great question, Tyler, on the I haven't run the report. Look what you can do. So you hit report and it gives you options on what you want to include in the report. Cover page, table of contents, you want your signature page, you want your comps, maps, and this one I did cover page, comps, map, adjustments, summary, and pricing your home. I didn't put anything in about SUMA, although that would be a logical one. But you have to have that information loaded in there. And then, and it'll pull right from whatever. An optional page 2 you can put in there maybe about your, optional page 2 would be a good one, like my comparing Dave to other realtors. Or comparing Lester to other realtors or whoever. And then, hey, I want a red border. I want to show the recommended price. And then you hit generate report. And there you go, there's your report, the comps, the map. See how the adjustments all come out on one page? That's kind of nice. 416, 427, 429, 650. And then we had the 407 right here. So that one, this looks pretty interesting, 416 to 429. So about 13,000 difference in price between low and high. So I'm probably going to recommend, you know, on the 430, you're a little bit high for the, you know, it's just not going to look good. I get my photos to look so good. 416, maybe on the low end. You had a 407 in there. If that's actually a true number, then it might be closer to that. If it's not, and that guy got a really good buy, then maybe so. I'm gonna recommend you to go 425. It's tri-level. There aren't any of them. You know, we're in a senior. I'm 425 maximum. There's your comparables, and then here's your pricing page.
Nice.
And then we're going to, you can make a PDF of it, you can email it right away. I never ever email a CMA unless I'm sitting, the only time I would do it would be I've already sat down with them and I went back and made some adjustments just based on maybe I found a better comp because I'd done this 3 weeks ago and then and now we're 3 weeks ahead. And there's a new comp that came in, I can go and just replace it, make the adjustments, and then email it to them. I never would email, hey Dave, can you just shoot me a price on my house if they're gonna sell? If it's, hey Dave, I'm thinking about refining, I haven't seen them for 7 years. Good idea to go walk through the house just to get an update on what they've done, but to connect with them, because why? They're a referral source for you, right? So you wanna go do that. But normally, I have clients that sometimes call me about every year and say, hey, can you give me an updated value? I'll just email it to them if it's been a year. But I don't do it if it's somebody I don't know or I'm going to go in and compete for a listing. So
So if you wanted to price that house at 425 and make it look like a bargain and price it at 424.9, because psychologically that's a, you know, trigger, I guess. Would you miss out on, like, if people are searching in $25,000 increments, you'd miss out on the next set of people up, right?
you would miss out on the people between 425 and 450
Yeah.
if you priced it at 424.9.
There's the opposite though, because a lot of people say less than X, so it might be.
Some people,
425
a
or
lot
less.
of the market does. So that brings up the most excellent question of the day, which is, okay, what happens if I have a house that's coming in at like 440, 435 to 440? Where would I want to price that in today's market?
Because it's more of a.
Where? How much?
I'd say it's, right now, this fall, it just dropped a little. It's not as much as the seller's market as it was earlier in the year. So I would probably have more on the lower end of that spectrum.
Also, I think from the perspective of loans, I think the first qualifies to what, 407, 408. Sometimes people look also at the mortgage insurance. How can I not get into mortgage insurance too? I don't know.
Well, how about in terms of a house, let's forget about Alderbrook for a second, but just a house that's coming out to like 430, 440. What would be a good price, assuming that the numbers are really showing like 430 to 440?
Yeah.
Where would you want to put it?
Value seems.
434.9.
434.9. Do we hear another one? That's a good one.
Sorry, but
I'd probably go 430. Yeah. I think I agree with Tyler. That's pretty close. I definitely wouldn't go to 440 though. 'Cause
What's our
values are
job?
coming down.
What
as many
Get the
offers
money
as
value.
possible.
You get the
for
best
our
money,
size.
most money possible.
most amount of money?
Yes.
What brings the most amount of money?
Tons of
Lots of offers.
Lots of offers.
bidding against each other.
But you gotta
Conveying
create
value.
showings.
Value.
Would you rather have 4 showings and 2 offers, or 8 showings and 4 offers?
8 showings and 4 offers.
Okay, so if I were gonna do that and the numbers were really strong at 430 to 440, I price it at 450. And the reason is I'm pulling $100,000 worth of buyers instead of $50,000 worth of buyers.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm pulling $100,000 of buyers online looking
By pricing it at 450?
by pricing it at 450.
Oh, because you're getting both above and
4
below
to
the 450?
450.
Just 'cause of the
I'm getting
ranges.
425 to 450, 4 to 450.
Okay.
I'm getting 450 buyers looking at 475, and I'm getting 475 looking at 500, 450 looking at 500.
I
Okay.
get it.
I'm pulling in twice the amount of buyers. Now that 454 guy might go, holy cow, you know, I mean, I can certainly afford that, but it looks like it's coming in around 440. Do you think he's not gonna run an offer?
That's true.
He's gonna run an offer, especially in a low inventory market. We're in a low inventory market. It's a little soft, but in terms of trying to get the whole amount of showings, if we go at 450 and we can maybe pull in a few more showings, it might create a higher value for the seller. But your strategy isn't off because, hey, things have softened up a little bit. It's just that I'm trying to get my client the most amount of money. I've educated them to the fact that if we're low, we're going to get multiple offers. If we're high and we're not getting offers, we should probably drop a little bit. I'm not risky. I've already told them if we're high and we're not getting offers that we got to bring the price down in my presentation.
So your strategy is always go a little higher than what your actual CMA is, because you can always lower it in a couple weeks.
Not always.
Could go under
Great
if you're hitting
question.
that price point to broaden your,
Bingo.
your,
If you're-
exposure.
If you want to go lower to increase the exposure, let's say it came in at 407
Yeah.
to 409. Let's say, okay,
Yeah.
do you want to go pull in the 400 to 425, 50 buyers? Or do you
Right.
want to pull in the 350 buyers
To 400.
to 450?
Those are the border, when they're on the border.
They're on the border. You really have to think through this. You're so welcome. You really have to think through this. Because if you're really close to that $100,000 break, the 300 or the 400 or the 500 or the 600, wait a second. Because if you go to 400 and you get a buyer that's between 350 and 400, and maybe that 350 buyer can't quite do it, but they go, well, maybe they'll take a little bit less. And so I get a call from Tyler and he says, hey Dave, my buyer's going to come in a little 400. Is it okay if I write the offer? I mean, I've had agents go, oh, don't even waste my time. And I'm saying, absolutely. Why? Because when the other agents call me and they go, do you have any offers? I go, yeah, I got 3 right now.
Right.
Yeah.
What are they telling their buyers? They're going to have to come up a little bit. And so I use Tyler's lowball to say, yeah, I've got 3 offers. Or I've got 1 offer. A lot of times, as soon as I have 2 offers, I'm saying I have multiple offers. Oh shoot! Can you tell me how many? Well, I wish I could. You know, but my sellers didn't want me to share how many offers they got. It's just multiple. Write a good offer if you want the house. You see what I'm saying? And honest to goodness, I had one like this not too long ago, and we had like 8 offers, and they all ended at about 360. And then there was one that came in at 385. I mean, it was like 25,000 more because we had so many offers. You know, how many offers you got? I got multiple offers, it's a lot. Okay, great. Do we need to write it above that 350 price? Absolutely, you need to be really high. How high? Substantially higher. You know, substantially. And they came in at 385. I'm like, 25,000, one phone call made for the seller that fast. So when you're listing a house and you're in those $100,000 increments and you're just slightly over and the numbers coming in, don't go up from there because you exclude a whole section of buyers, and explain it to the seller like that. We're excluding $50,000 worth of buyers online. Well, why would I wouldn't pay, I wouldn't sell my house for 380. We're not going to. If it's worth 405 or 410, what we're trying to do is create more value than that by listing it at 400, because we're pulling in all those buyers and using those to leverage the other buyers that are going to write offers that know that it's worth 410 up.
So what about your other example with a 407 to 409 valuation? Where would you go with
400.
that? Okay.
Yeah. And then if they go, absolutely not, Dave, you know, I'm not going to list with you if you do that. I don't go, okay, well, I'm sorry, I only do what I say I'm going to do. I would go, okay, let's go 4099, and I'll do what you want to do, but I'm just going to tell you we might have gotten more money if we did the 400, but if we're high, we're not getting offers. Remember what I said, the market tells us, we'll see you back there, the market tells us what the house is worth. So you've already, and you know.
Yeah, bottom line is what are people gonna pay?
Yeah, one offer in a week. We've had 8 showings, one offer. What have you done? Priced it perfectly. Because you've exposed 8 people to it in a week and you got one offer.
Yeah.
In a week, yeah.
I had a listing out in McMinnville not too long ago. What ended up happening, because Dustin helped me with doing the CMA, and it came out somewhere between like, I think it was like 314, 330, somewhere in there, and my sellers decided to go with 300 for my recommendation to capture that wide audience. And we waited. It was within the first, within the second week of it being on the market, and we got one offer, and they actually came in a little bit low, but we countered back at the full price and they accepted it. But my clients were anticipating, you know, oh, we listed it low, multiple offers, and we're really going to go above this, and you know, so they ended up being a little bit disappointed. So it's just like a risk of going down versus pricing where we're at, because maybe we got an offer at the higher price, but then maybe it just sat and we had to.
Well, Brandon, in this case, what I would have told the sellers is, remember, the numbers are coming out there.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't mean that's what it's worth. We're giving you an opinion of value.
Right.
And it could be low, and we get multiplier, or it could be high. Even
Yeah.
if you pull it down to 300, we want to be close to that $100,000 increment, it still could be high. We don't know that for sure, because there's a whole bunch of different reactions from the market, time of the year when you go on, how your house looks, you know, when they actually get here versus the great pictures that we're going to use in the photographs. We're just telling you that the numbers are coming in kind of around here.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you set them up like that,
Yeah.
then they're going to be less disappointed, and may
Right.
not even be disappointed. They go, oh yeah, I remember you talking to me about that. And I mean, that's happened to me a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought it was worth 425, Dave, and we only got 400. Do you remember that page that we went through in the first 5 minutes about how the market reacts to the listing price of your house? You know, I'm not saying your house is worth X. I've done my homework on the comps to try to give it the best, you know, but they're going to view you as the expert for sure. And they were hoping to get more, but you listed it perfectly at 300. That's like, you know, Mac's kind of a tough market too. It's not the same market. I know it's hot in the lower price range.
Yeah.
You know, more in the 250s, 240s, 230s. But you know, once you 300, you're getting up there. You know, especially for a rental, because there's a lot of rentals going for Linfield.
Right.
You know, do a lot of people want to buy? You almost remove the investors out at that price. By the way, in McMinnville, you don't in Newburgh.
Right.
They'll buy 300 all day as an
Oh, yeah.
investor. But Mac is just a little bit. You know, in another 10 years, it won't be.
Yeah.
Because Lafayette's already booming right now at 300, 275s, you know. People think it's Dundee, you know. It's not.
Perception is everything.
So with what he was saying, with that situation, would it then be accurate to say that the true value is, when it comes down to it,